Hello everyone, I am Anthropomantic Fiend, and I do horror-related things on the internet, but today we are going back into my favorite songs of the month videos. If you've seen one of these before, I'm sure you know the drill at this point. I'm going to list several songs that I listened to in the past month that I really enjoyed. They don't have to be brand new songs that have just been released. They just have to be things that are either new to me or somehow a rediscovery for me, or just something that is very current for me that I'm really enjoying. If you like the sound of anything that I'm about to mention, I will be linking a YouTube playlist featuring as many of these songs as are available on YouTube, a Spotify playlist of the same, and my personal favorite songs Spotify playlist with over 1,000 of my favorite songs on it. Without further ado, here are my favorite songs of May 2021. First off, we have Spirit Box with Circle With Me. I've talked about Spirit Box before. They were in my very first favorite songs of the month video that I did. This track is very rooted in classic metalcore tropes in some ways, very rooted in what Spirit Box are known for in a lot of ways as well, but it is just a really well done example of both. It has really great melodic verses and choruses, as well as some really heavy moments and a fantastic, brutal sounding breakdown. Their guitar tone is just phenomenal, and their riffs are really phenomenal. They hit all of the right beats, everything you want out of a heavy song, but they managed to make their riffs sound really unique, which I really appreciate. Next up, we have White Sister with April, You're No Fool. This one is on here because it was prominently featured in Killer Party, which I reviewed last month. The other main reason it's on here is because I kept referring to it as April Wine in that video, and I want to correct that. April by White Sister is a very straightforward hair metal, pop metal song, but done really well. It's really catchy, really fun riffs, and it ties into the April Fool's theme of the movie very well. Next up, we have The Wrong Side by Abney Park, and Abney Park are best known for being a steampunk band, possibly the best known steampunk band, or at least one of them. This one really piqued my interest because Abney Park started out as essentially a goth rock band, and this is a song from that era, but it still sounds like the Abney Park we know, just without the retro-futuristic world music influences. All of the sounds that they're pulling from are very much in the vein of classic goth rock, but the vocals still sound the same. The kinds of melodies that they use sound a lot like Abney Park, and the rhythm section, the basic beat that's underneath everything, sounds very Abney Park. I just thought it was really interesting to hear where Abney Park started out, and despite being way more goth rock than it is steampunk, it still sounds very much like the same band, and it's just a really good song. Next up, we have Aluna with Wicked Game, and Wicked Game is a song that gets covered a lot. Probably the most popular covers of the song are by Him, which has been my personal favorite cover of that for a long time, and probably still is, and the cover that Stone Sour did. This cover definitely is in the same vein as the one Him did, but it is, rather than kind of a slightly poppy goth doom metal thing, which is what Him's version is, this one is a full-out doom metal version of the song, which just sounds so melancholy and bleak, and it's very slow, but it's still the same melody, and that is just a song that I really like, and I like hearing reinterpretations of it, and this one is just the saddest, gloomiest, heaviest version I've ever heard, and I really enjoyed that. It's kind of ironic that one of the most depressing versions of the song that I've ever heard actually kind of makes me happy. Next up, we have Floor Jansen with her cover of Euphoria. I will probably put who Euphoria is originally by somewhere down here because I forgot to listen to the original version of the song. It is a song that won Eurovision at some point, and Floor Jansen, who is the current vocalist of Nightwish, my favorite band, also been with After Forever and Revamp and has projects like Northward, great vocalist all around, recently made a virtual appearance on the Dutch TV show Beste Zangers, which she's been on before. I believe that loosely translates to Best Singers, but it's just a show where a bunch of singers will come together and cover different songs, and it's not a competitive thing, it's just a sharing of music between Dutch artists, which I think is really cool. Floor made an appearance on there and covered this song, and she really makes it her own. It has a lot of hallmarks of a lot of things from her previous metal bands, especially After Forever, in my opinion, and she is just an absolute monster of a vocalist. She is extremely versatile and extremely powerful, and that definitely comes through in this cover. Next up, we have another cover song, which is Brides of Lucifer with Fear of the Dark, originally by Iron Maiden. And Brides of Lucifer is essentially a metal band with the vocals being provided by a choir of female voices. Some of theirs basically just sound like a straightforward cover of the original track with a haunting female choir providing the vocals. This one really strips back the song and kind of shortens it a little bit in some ways, but makes it into this eerie little atmospheric piece that I thought was really cool. Fear of the Dark is just one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs anyway, so I thought this was a really cool, haunting reinterpretation of that. Next up, we have Necromancer Dancing by Bear Ghost, and this is just something that popped up on my Spotify Discover Weekly randomly, and it was right in my wheelhouse instantly. It's definitely a rock track, but it has a weird carnival-esque, Danny Elfman-esque kind of twist to it, and the lyrics are about a necromancer creating a horde of undead who are also busting some killer dance moves. It's very in the vein of the macabre, but also very playful, and it has an almost musical theater-esque tone to it, while still definitely being a rock song with some amazing musicianship. Next up, we have Ghost with Witch Image. This is actually a song I had heard before. I actually started to learn it a little bit on guitar a couple years ago. I hadn't heard it in a really long time, and it just got stuck in my head a bunch recently. I just absolutely love Ghost. It's a really catchy song, but also features their kind of deceptively dark lyrics, which I really appreciate. I absolutely love the juxtaposition of their really dark image and the darkness of their lyrics with their very melodic and fairly accessible sound. I think that's just really fun. Next up, we have Tarja with Anteroom of Death. Tarja is the former first vocalist for Nightwish, who has since gone on to do a bunch of solo work. Very operatic voice. This track was really fun to me because it's doing this on and off, loud and quiet thing with dynamics that's really fun. It sounds very prim and proper at first. You've got this very elegant sounding harpsichord, Tarja being very operatic and sweet sounding over that, and then just out of nowhere the guitar explodes, the tempo picks up, and Tarja is still being operatic as she always is, but also a lot more aggressive, and then it'll pull back and suddenly be very sweet again, and just that quiet, loud dynamic is really fun to me, and it kind of feels like they're toying with the listener, which I enjoy. Then later on, we get 4 different vocal lines being sung in a way that reminds me of a lot of choral pieces, but also of a lot of theatrical rock songs from bands like Queen. Next up, we have Lindsay Schoolcraft with Fear to Rage, featuring Morgan Lander. This was a really pleasant surprise to me. This is a track that I found because Lindsay Schoolcraft was doing like a 4 free songs thing. If you click the link to download, it was mostly like an introductory things for new listeners, but I'm a little obsessed with Lindsay's music, so I kind of had to click on it. And most of it was stuff that I had heard before, but this final track was new to me. And it is actually a track that was written for the film 1031, which is a Halloween-themed horror anthology that a lot of people in the horror community have been talking about. I know Hobbs Horror really likes this one. I had no idea that Lindsay was involved with it, but apparently Rocky Gray, who's formerly of Evanescence and We Are the Fallen, and has since gone on to do horror movie soundtracks for things like 1031, did the music for 1031, and ended up bringing in Lindsay to do a song for the movie, which ended up also featuring Morgan Lander from Kitty on guest vocals, and she is phenomenal, and that also made me really excited because she is also one of the hosts of Witch Finger Horror Podcast, which I have been listening to quite a bit. And on top of that, it is a really good song. It is very much on the heavier end of Lindsay's stuff, leaning into the almost nu metal sounding, just big chunky riffs. It's also just really catchy, great track, and a great cross section of things that I like meeting that I thought was cool. And finally, we have Diablo Swing Orchestra with Superhero Jagannath, which I had heard before, but didn't really grab me before. I was more used to Diablo Swing Orchestra's older stuff. They're kind of an avant-garde metal band with a twist of swing music, if that wasn't evident from their name. And a lot of their earlier stuff really, really leans hard into the swing influence. It's pretty much a straight-up swing metal fusion that is really, really cool. This song is a lot more avant-garde and goes in a lot more weird directions, but that is kind of what I wanted at this point. There are moments that are flat out heavy, there are growling sections, there are moments that feel like lounge music, there are moments that bring in those Queen-like harmonies that I mentioned before. The video even has an homage to Bohemian Rhapsody going on in certain sections, and this is another instance of something feeling like the artist is just having fun and toying with the listener a little bit, which I always appreciate. So those are my favorite songs that I listened to in May of 2021. Again, if you are interested in all of these, I will have all of the playlists I mentioned before linked in the description of this video. Thank you for watching my video, and hopefully I will see you in another one. Bye!